A story is told. A woman stands by a window, peering out beyond the shade. She's waiting for someone to return. Nervously, her eyes look towards the horizon. Why is his chariot so late in coming? Why so long the chatter of its wheels? Her son Sisera, the great general, is out at battle, leading the troops, but he should have returned hours ago. The wisest of ladies give answer. They must be dividing the spoils of war. Still, a mother worries, as a mother always does. The sun begins to set, and still she stands by the window, waiting, hoping, praying. Slowly, a tear begins to form, and she weeps quietly and sobs uncontrollably. 3 blasts of the shofar, the sound of moaning. 9 calls, a woman sobbing. The long tekiah gedolah, a heart breaking. The rabbis teach us that the shofar is likened to the sound of crying. Whose cries does the shofar represent? The Talmud teaches us that it is the mother of Sisera, waiting by the window, hoping for her son's return. Now, Sisera was not a Jew. In fact, he was our ancient enemy, the leader of the Canaanite army. And Sisera wished to destroy our people. Yet the wail of the shofar does not signify the cries of our ancestors. Incredibly, it symbolizes the weeping of our ancient enemy's mother. When the shofar's piercing sound is heard tomorrow, its cry should fill us with empathy, not for our challenges, but for the pain and loss felt by all humanity. Now, we know how difficult it can be to feel the aching and the distress of those around us. Sometimes it's easier for us to shy away from others' suffering. We might hurry past a homeless person, try not to be emotionally involved with a coworker's troubles, or ignore the pleas of a stranger in need of support. It's natural to try and avoid grief and hardship. But not for all of us, and especially not for Julio de Leon. A few weeks ago, Julio was riding on his bike across the George Washington Bridge. It's a trip that he does often from his job in New York City to his home in Rockland County. But that day, Julio noticed something unusual. He looked up and he saw a man standing on the ledge, 200 feet, and then the Hudson River. Now, Julio jumped off his bike. He ran over to the man. He had no script. Nothing had prepared him for this day. He just looked at him, and he screamed out, "Don't do it. We love you." And in a second, he grabbed that man and took him over the railing to safety. Now, Julio wasn't the first person to see that man on the bridge. Seconds before he had gotten there, a pedestrian arrived who whipped out his phone and took a couple pictures. Why did the first man snap a photo instead of reaching out a hand? What was it about Julio that caused him to help, to act? Michelle Borba writes in Unselfie, Why Empathetic Kids Succeed in Our All About Me World, that even if we wish differently, most of us are in fact bystanders, instead of being upstanders. We often feel powerless, not sure how to make the trouble stop. We have vague expectations, not sure if we should help. And most importantly, we believe that someone else will help, diffusing responsibility. And our world is changing so quickly, with our phones often glued to our hands, and our children now the first to grow up in the selfie generation. We've seen some troubling changes in our conduct. Dips in empathy and increase in narcissistic behavior, more peer cruelty, and cyberbullying. Now, these dips in empathy are troubling, for kindness is truly the foundation of what it means to be a Jew. Our rabbis teach that no mitzvah is more important than love your neighbor as yourself, while no commandment is found more often in the Torah than love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Even Hillel, that famous rabbi, reminds us, that which is hateful to you, don't do to others. That is the entire Torah, the rest commentary. Now go and learn. It's Hillel's conclusion that is the most significant. Now go and learn. Empathy and kindness don't exist without real work. Michelle Borba teaches that like riding a bike or learning a foreign language, empathy is a quality that can be taught, that can be learned. The ability to have empathy is crucial because it affects our health and happiness and the ability to bounce back from adversity. These values and traits must be constantly learned and honed. Hillel reminds us that we can't just act compassionately. We also must constantly work at being empathetic. And that's hard work, especially when our friends and neighbors are living through challenging experiences that we can't even fathom. We sometimes feel physically and emotionally removed from the difficulties and the pain that they endure. Our hope is to listen and to understand as much as we possibly can. That's empathy. Now, long ago, a Hasidic Rebbe went to visit one of the richest men in town. The man opened his door and invited the rabbi in because it was a freezing cold February day. The Rebbe said, "Oh, I only need a moment of your time. How is your kids, your family? Everybody's doing well?" "Rebbe, it's freezing cold. Come in. I've got a warm house." "Oh, what about Moshe and Rachel, your friends? I haven't really seen them in a while. They're holding up?" "Rebbe, I don't have a coat on. I don't have shoes on. Please, come in." "Your job? Everything's good? You're making a good profit these days?" "Rebbe, please. I just need one question to ask you. There's a few in our town who don't have money to heat their homes. So I'm asking for 100 rubles to buy the wood for their stoves so that they could be warm during the winter. Rebbe, if I give you the 100 rubles, will you please come in?" "Of course." "Now, Rebbe, I don't understand. Why couldn't you have asked me that question inside?" "Well, you would have welcomed me in. We would have sat by the hot fire. You would have given me a hot cup of tea. And when I asked, you would have given 5, maybe 10 rubles. But out in the bitter cold, you experienced just a few minutes of what many experience every day of their lives. And in your compassion, you gave that 100 rubles. To be compassionate means putting ourselves in others' shoes, to feel their pain as if it were our own. That wealthy man never experienced a day in his life without a warm fire and a hot cup of tea. But outside, for just a couple of moments, he was able to understand what it would be like to be in a freezing cold home. We know that it's impossible to truly feel what another is feeling. We are unable to experience all the hardships that they face, but we can look deep within our hearts and discover the moments that give us pain, and we can refuse to inflict that pain on anyone else. That's compassion. Now, walking in each other's shoes is a start, but it is not enough. As Jews, we are commanded not just to feel another's pain, but to do our part to bring a little bit of comfort. And as parents and grandparents and teachers and mentors, we can provide the next generation with a moral framework that they need to act. Here's just a couple of things we could do. One is to set expectations. Our kids are more likely to help when we believe that they expect them to act. We can be better role models and show our kids that we personally stand up for what we believe in. We can share stories about the heroes, whether it's the little engine that could, or Rosa Parks, or the heroic acts of a next-door neighbor. And we can step back and let our kids struggle and find their own voice. That's just what Marilyn and Don Perlin did, with a little help from their daughter. Like many parents, Marilyn and Don had spent much of their time nurturing their kids' skills, such as helping them with their math homework and their reading, setting them up for success in school. But one day, Amanda found out that her first-grade teacher's daughter was diagnosed with cancer. And Amanda wanted to help, so on her own, she decided to make holiday ornaments that she could sell for a fundraiser. It was then that Marilyn and Don realized that they spent so much time focused on education that they didn't devote nearly enough energy on values like empathy and compassion. And moving forward, they decided that they would teach their kids how to become change makers. That's what they did. They sat down with their kids and helped them find ways to give back. At 12, Eric started Stepping Up, which provides free shoes to underprivileged kids, and he began that project with his bar mitzvah money. At 15, Chad started Doc Adopt when he learned that a classmate needed dental work that her family couldn't afford. And Amanda launched To Have and To Hug, which provided stuffed animals to kids at shelters and hospitals. Don and Marilyn taught their kids that they could make a difference. And now, 20 years later, the Perlin Family Charities are still making our world a better place. Time moves so quickly. Days become months, months become a year, and a year becomes 3.5. Just yesterday, my son Caleb was a baby, with his heartbreaking cry of Tekiah Gedola awakening me in the middle of the night. And now I hear him. What I hear isn't a cry, but a question. Why, Abba? Why? As a parent, I have so much to teach him. I want him to be generous and compassionate and caring. May the shofar's wail awaken us. May we be stirred. May we be roused. So that this year we become better role models, better teachers, and kinder, more empathetic Jews and people. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May it be so. Amen.